Hi, we're going to talk about tackling communication overload before it tackles you. Communication overload can affect any of us, even the most efficient and organized. We're going to talk about what communication overload is, why it's common, the negative impacts it can cause, and then we're going to talk about some specific actions to overcome communication overload, how to protect ourselves from unproductive communication, how to bring balance back to our days, and how to leave work each day with feeling a sense of accomplishment instead of a sense of frustration. Communication overload. The definition of it is here in the presentation. However, I'm going to simplify that in my version, which really means that we are experiencing a greater number of communication inputs than that we're actually capable of processing in any effective way in a given time frame. Why is communication overload so prevalent today? Well, first of all, communication is a necessary and integral part of our jobs. We have multiple communication platforms that we're all dealing with on a consistent basis throughout our days. Emails, IMs, jumping between texting and phone calls and back and forth. And then you add collaboration overload, and that's a big contributor to communication overload as well. A survey that was completed by Dynamics Signal in 2018 shows us that 50% of us feel overwhelmed by communications. And 30% of us are so stressed that we're actually ready to quit our jobs. Another survey that was published by Jory McKay and surveyed 50,000 workers from around the world. And most of us can't go 6 minutes without checking our inbox. The majority of us do not get 1 hour of focused communication time a day. And 84% of us leave our inbox open at all times, no matter what we're working on. The survey also shared that by shifting tasks from one to another, even momentarily, it decreases our productivity level by 40%. And unchecked communication overload actually trains our brains to be easily distracted. So we're not doing ourselves any favors. Another article published in the Harvard Business Review talked about how workers in general spend as much as 50% more time in collaborative activities than they did in the past. At some companies, that's 80%. The company that I work for is certainly, I would say, inching up toward that 80%. That leaves little time for critical work, and it results in increased stress, burnout, and turnover for ourselves and our companies that we work for. So the key to this is balance. We need to have balance between being responsive and available with the need to have focused time on critical tasks. So we're going to go through some tools to help us tackle that communication overload. The first one, it's very simple, but it takes some self-discipline. Dedicate the first hour of your day to the most important work. If you do this, it will help motivate your brain and enhance your mood for the day. Then we need to set timelines to avoid task switching. As we talked about, switching from one task to another, even momentarily, we have to redirect our brain, so it costs us it's very costly in productivity time, 40%. So we need to schedule our email and our chat time, and then we need to share that schedule with our coworkers, our teams. And if you do, they will become accustomed to it. And in fact, my team has now been doing this. They know I will not be on email until 9 or 9:30 in the morning. And I've actually seen the quality of their communications to me improve. They're more organized and planned, a little bit more thought out, because they know I'm not going to get into an email exchange that goes on endlessly throughout a day. Another tool that we can do is to block off our calendars specifically for time to plan and do our own personal work. This is critical. You need to schedule a minimum of 30-minute blocks and if possible 60-minute blocks of time to spend on your focused, uninterrupted work. If you have ever walked into a meeting and felt unprepared or ineffective, then you absolutely need to begin doing this if you are not doing it already. Schedule that time to be prepared and to follow up. Put on that do not disturb so that you can stay focused. And then we need to train our brain to be focused, and we need to put some distance between ourselves and our communication tools. Get rid of those desktop notifications like we've mentioned. Close that email when you're not working in it. A great example of this that I used at my company, at the end of the year, we do performance evaluations. There's always a scramble to get them done in a certain amount of time. I had 10 of them to do in a particular time frame, and it's almost impossible to get uninterrupted time at the end of the year at my organization. And so I actually blocked off 2 half days of my calendar. I was out of the office. I actually went to the library. I took the tools and the information that I needed to complete those performance evaluations, and I did so without interruption. And it definitely smoothed out the process and helped me write a better review for my folks. And it just worked out a lot very nicely to be that disconnected. Another tool, prioritize those invitations that come to you to collaborate with other departments and others, teams, etc. Don't let other people's emergencies become your emergency. You may have to say no sometimes. If the topic is not something on your prioritization list, you may have to say no and not feel guilty about it. Or if you say yes, do it with the boundaries that work for you. Just last week, I was asked to join a project team, and my response was, well, I would be happy to, but I really do not have any bandwidth or time available to dedicate to this at all in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And if it could wait until June 1st, I would be happy to contribute. And the party told me that would be great. They weren't going to wait that long, but they decided that it was worth it in order to have me join the team. So it was a great win-win for both of us. So to sum up, an article that was published by Matt Dudek, I thought really captured in his title of his article, a portion of it was less talk and more action, which I think really is very applicable here. And a rule of thumb he mentioned in his article was to focus less on new ways to communicate and more on enabling employees to act. It seems like a very straightforward approach. So in summary, we talked about how most of us experience communication overload. We now have the tools to take control of our time, take care of our brain, and become more effective at our jobs. Using these tools can bring balance to your days, enhance your performance, and provide a sense of accomplishment. So thank you very much. Happy balancing. Thank you for listening.